Okay, thank you very much. So this is session 2 about brand strategy. So I am Ji-Young Shin. I'm a professor of marketing at Yale School of Management. I'm very honored to lead these sessions. So brand is a very interesting concept. Brand strategy has changed dramatically over the past decade. Traditionally, brand strategy is something that formed, created, and dictated to customers. However, this formula no longer works today. So nowadays, in a digital era and in today's kind of social media era, brand is something that created by the company and shaped and evolved with consumers. So in this challenging, very different environment, so how does a firm can maximize their brand performance and how they can incorporate consumer insight to better perform their brand strategy is today's topic. So we have 3 excellent speakers and from the industry and academics. So our first speaker is Ben Jones from Google. He's a creative director at Google. He works to build their brands by using the best technology and media and storytelling. So today he's going to talk about what Google they are investing in the future human experience and what's the implication for brand building. Okay, so Ben.
Hi, it's great to be here. My name is Ben Jones. I am a creative director. My job is to work with brands and agencies, helping them do bigger, better, more awesome work. And I thought when I started at Google, the most amazing thing about my job was I would get to go inside of the secret volcanic lair and see the space elevators and the telepathy helmets and the teleportation pads. But actually the most interesting part is that I get to work on all of the major brands, all of the agencies. I see 3, 4, 5 briefs a week. On an average night of television, maybe 60 or 70% of the advertising campaigns you see I've touched in some way or another. I know the teams, I know the brands, I've had conversations with them. And that throughput is tremendous because it lets you see very quickly what's genuinely new and original and what is a copy of a copy of a copy, what's fresh, what's actually going to make a difference and what doesn't. You see the risks that companies are going to take and the risks that they are afraid to take as they build their brands. This presentation, in contrast to many others today, will not be full of numbers. In fact, there are 2. It's 10. It's repeated twice, so you could write it down now and you guys will be okay. I also am not going to talk a lot about Google products. I'm going to talk about the places where we're thinking about the future of human experience, and hopefully that will be valuable for you guys. So as close as we come to a secret volcanic lair is Google X. It's the division within Google that's focused on transforming our world through moonshot technologies. So taking on enormous problems with radical technical solutions that make the world an incredibly better place. And I'm going to play a short film about them because they really set the tone for how we think across the organization.
The actual Moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. Even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
you don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand, and we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
So Google X is a little bit of a spearhead for all of Google to say, what are we doing? What kind of change do we want to bring about? What will we make happen in the world? One of their projects, the self-driving car, driven almost 1 million miles now on California roads, approved in a bunch of other states. Very interesting to think about a self-driving car as a car and safety, and isn't that amazing? But I think for us it's the beginning of a transformation. What happens to urban landscapes when we don't all need to have cars, when half of our urban spaces don't need to be paved anymore? What happens to civil society when car ownership is not a central means of self-definition? For us, that's an incredibly exciting idea. And it's not a marketing idea, it's a human culture idea. But very, very interesting, very challenging to think about for us. Project Loon, which is now underway, a series of high-altitude balloons to bring high-speed Wi-Fi access to the entire world in some form or another. Again, very interesting to think about what happens to healthcare, what happens to education, how are we transforming human society, business, agriculture, if everyone has access in this way. The balloons are launched now. We've conducted a successful test in New Zealand, so out they go. They're working, and we're starting to deploy in a band across South America and Central Africa. And this is relevant for me because the woman who I share an office with just went to work for them. This is not some fantasy out there in the world, but my office mate left. She's in Brazil now talking with the telecommunications companies to say, what would this look like, and how do we make it real? Glass, the Glass team. Glass, I think, pretty well known. For us, it's a matter of putting technologies out there and seeing how people respond. We thought it was going to be about learning the ukulele so I could play it for my girlfriend at the end of the day. It turns out it's being most actively used by heart surgeons to access critical medical information in the moment of surgery so they can maintain eye contact with the patient and yet find out whether or not they're allergic to medications they're being served. And for us, it's not really about product, but about process. So the Glass team, which is not a very large team, was charged with producing 30 prototypes a month. 30 prototypes a month. Not sit in a conference room, not show another PowerPoint presentation, not debate with a focus group, is this a thing you want or not? Make the thing, get it in market, and learn from it. So these are the guys who you sit in the cafeteria with, and that's the stuff that they're working on, and they turn to you and they say, what's your job? What are you making? What's your 10x? And I think for us, for all of us at Google, we ingest that and say, that's a super interesting question. You know, how can we bring this kind of 10x thinking to the work that I'm doing, where I'm going? What matters to my clients and customers. And I'm very fortunate that my job is not about an incremental 10% improvement, but it is about 10x. It's about transforming brands in substantive ways. So I thought what I'd share with you today are 3 areas that we are thinking about in the world of marketing. And not because we want marketers to do this, but these are places where we, Google, are investing. We are a product company as well as a media company. This is where we're putting our money. And I'll sketch out some implications for marketing. The first is the idea that context is magic. I think for a long time in the digital world and now in the mobile world, we talk about utility, right? Let's serve user needs. Let's get things to people faster, easier, what they want. Let's give them the things that they want. That's not enough anymore, and that's not where the future of the experience is. The future of experience, we believe, is magic. It's a magical experience. It's a thing that I did not expect, that I did not imagine ahead of time. It's a transformational experience. And I'll start from utility to show you some ways that's working and then draw out from there. So we figured out a long time ago that if you got search results faster, you were happier. Right? Faster. We had whole teams of engineers, and they were shaving hundredths of a second off how quickly we could get your search results back. That's where autocomplete came from. Tons and tons of innovation. And then Larry and Sergey went to the team that's doing search, and they said, there's a limit to how fast search can be, right? There's a natural human limit. So your task is now make search better than instant, better than instant. That is a brief that has driven tremendous innovation at Google and continues to. So for my mind, one of the most interesting projects that we're doing now is Google Now. And if you haven't seen it, it's built into the Android operating system. It's available on iOS. You swipe up from the bottom of the screen at any time, and you get a series of these knowledge cards. And they know where home is, and they know where work is, and they know if you're taking a flight because they can read it from your email and your calendar. They know the weather, where you're landing, because we've got weather data flowing in. They know when you should leave for your flight because they know how much traffic there is between where you are and the airport. They know your human context. They know the behaviors that you've exhibited in the past, and they serve up in an incredibly simple way the information that you need in that moment. It is a magical experience to get a little buzz in a meeting to discover that the Holland Tunnel is locked up and you better find a different route to get to your flight on time, because it knows when the flight's on time and not on time. All, of course, permission. This is not like you can invite it in as much as you want to, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason that I share this in the context of advertising and marketing is if my expectation as a consumer is you know my human context, you know where I am in the world, and you are choreographing live data around me in real time, what happens when I see your ad that was written by a copywriter 6 months ago who has no idea who I am, no idea my relationship to the company, no idea my personal context, no idea my state of mind relative to whether I'm going to purchase something from you or not? It's going to sit there like a dead thing, and it's going to carry the stench of advertising upon it. It's going to be that much harder to believe, engage with, etc. Another example on the right-hand side here, this is what we call the knowledge graph. So when you searched for Frank Lloyd Wright before, you get a link to the page that most probably had the answer that you were seeking. Now on the right side, you get these knowledge panels, the answer to your question, and the next question, and the next question, and 2 or 3 questions you have not thought of yet. And oh, by the way, this replaces the prime advertising space in search results. These are where the most valuable search results land. Why? Better for users. Better for users. This is search better than instant. Not your question, but the next and the next and the next and a bunch of others. This is context is magic in our products. And it's not just us that are, I want it a little far away, not just us that are doing that. This is a campaign in Chile from Jeep, one of my favorites. So GPS is a technology that it means it's impossible for us to get lost. We cannot get lost anymore. Jeep programmed into their GPS a button that allowed you to get lost. And what it did when you pressed that button is it connected you to one of 33 locations around Chile. In order to get there, you had to drive off-road. You had to drive through the mud. You had to use the capabilities of the Jeep, and it landed you in a beautiful spot. The GPS said, "This is a view that your boss's office does not have." Beautiful. Storytelling from context. Absolutely amazing. Second area. Data is waiting for its Scorsese. We have big data. We live in this era of big data, behavioral, targeting, social data. We know so much, so much, so much, and all we're thinking about it for mostly is targeting. We haven't thought about it as a storytelling tool. We haven't made the imaginative leap to say, here is a story that could be profoundly more moving because I know who you are, right? What we do is you looked at the shirt, now I'm going to show you the shirt again 400,000 times until you're incredibly sick of it, or you bought it and maybe I don't even know if you bought it or not. So the storytelling potential of the data that we have is immense, and we think the next frontier of advertising and marketing is going to take advantage of that. We've got a program on the branding side called Our Copy Code. You may have heard of it, trying to run a series of experiments where we look out into the future and say, well, will advertising be in 5 years? And then what can we do in the next 3 to 6 months? How can we explore really what's there? How can we push a prototype into market? I'm going to show you one of those today. This is a film that no one has ever seen before, right? That's what we all like. Unique. No one has ever seen this film before. This moment. If the Wi-Fi works.
Today. As in today. As in right now. It's a pretty exciting time to be doing what we're all doing. Because people like this, and people like that, are now sitting together with folks like this. And the work they're making isn't like the ads we're used to. It's stuff like this, these, and whatever this is. It's connecting the real world to the web, telling more personal stories with data, and using this stuff to make our lives easier and more fun. And wow, robots. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. And imagine what we could make next. Welcome to art, copy, and code.
So, as I hope you figured out while we were watching, this combines live data. It knows the location. It knows the weather outside. The clip in the background actually changes. If it's sunny, it'll be sunny. If it's rainy, it'll be rainy. If the weather is bad, the music slows down. If it's sunny, it speeds up. That's today's creativity. Last time it was today's PSFK. It's a different art director. It's a different copywriter. It's a different set of projects pulled from a database of over 75 projects. So that every single time the film is shown, it is absolutely unique. It's dynamically compiled. And yet, this film, for us, it was an experiment, so the database is static. But what happens if the components of it are live? What happens if they're real? What happens if they're delivered to you based on a set of rules, right? All that awesome data that we have about targeting. What if we're changing the story based on who you are, based on how you think, based on what your sympathies run towards, what you will find moving? We haven't even started to scratch the surface of that yet. And yet this is a thing that the technology can do very easily, right? We could do this today, tomorrow. We have brands who have been talking about doing this for years. But we haven't figured out as storytellers to think what's the right way to do this and how will we do it in a way that can build a brand that we haven't understood yet. So we think data is waiting for its Scorsese, immense opportunity. All right, and the last of these, this isn't really about Google. This is about a broader cultural trend. What will we make together? What will we make together? We see this incredible cultural energy flowing into new forms of collaboration. And we don't know the answer to that, so I'll share it out. Hopefully, maybe you guys can figure it out and tell us. Two stories from last year's TED that I found incredibly powerful. One, Sugata Mitra on the right. He's a software teacher in Delhi. His students, the parents of his students would all come in, they're very wealthy folks, and they would say, oh, my child is a genius. My child is a prodigy. And then he would walk out the door of his classroom, and there was an enormous wall, and on the far side of the wall was a massive slum. And he thought to himself, what is it about the parents of these poor children that their kids are not all prodigies and geniuses? And so it's a little hard to see, but he literally cut a hole in the wall, and he shoved a computer through. And the kids came up, and they said, what is it? And he said, I don't know. And they said, what does it do? And he said, I don't know. And they said, can we touch it? And he said, sure. And he left it there for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, he came back. And these kids, very little formal education, most no electricity in their homes, never been exposed to this kind of technology before, had entirely figured it out, perhaps unsurprising to us now. But they were downloading content. They were watching movies. They were playing games. The 10-year-olds were teaching the 8-year-olds. And so he came back into his school, and he said, it's amazing. These kids have figured this out. And the teachers at the school said, well, we think probably a student walked by and showed them how. So he designed his own experiment. He went 400 miles outside of Delhi into a quiet village. There were no students who could wander by. He set up the same experiment, except he said, I wanted to set them a challenge. So I asked them to figure out, what is the biochemistry of recombinant DNA? He said, this was a question I did not understand myself. And yet I thought, I'll do. So he went away for 3 months, and he came back, and he said, so did you figure it out? The kids all ran up, and they said, no, we couldn't figure it out. And he said, okay, maybe I was wrong. My assumptions were wrong. This little girl comes up, and she said, we figured out how the covalent bonds allow the RNA to divide, but we can't figure out how it recombines. From nothing, in 3 months, biology, chemistry, computers, unbelievable. And so his premise is, we have no idea how we teach and learn in this modern age where we have supercomputers in our pockets connected to the entire world's information. We have no idea. And for me, as a marketer, as an advertiser, the question that I draw away from is, what happens when you ask a really challenging question? Not tweet this, post that, plus this, send a picture of that, but a really fundamentally challenging, difficult, substantial question, a meaningful question. And my premise, which I would love to have one of our academic friends test for me, is if you ask somebody to do something that is essentially meaningless to them, meaningless to me, probably meaningless to your brand, meaningful, profoundly meaningful is going to be meaningful for your brand. So we'll see. We can put that in the market and find out what happens. But we believe. The second talk, Amanda Palmer, The Art of Asking. She's a musician. She lives very much out loud, crowdsources her horn section, couch surfs when she's on tour. She got signed by a major record label. They put out her album, sold 25,000 copies. She thought, amazing, 25,000 copies. The record label said, well, we were hoping it would do better. And so she complained in social media to all of her fans, oh, the record label, blah, blah. Everyone came up to her at shows and they started to hand her cash. They said, Amanda, I love your music. I want you to make more music. Here's $10. I torrented your album. I copied your album from my friend. But I want you to succeed. I want you to make more music. And what she realized in that moment, that was not an economic transaction. That was not a product-service transaction. That was a creative collaboration where they wanted to make something. They wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And their method of doing it was to give her money. So she said, I'm never selling another song. I'm going to give all of my music away, and I'm going to allow people to support me if it is meaningful for them. So she started a Kickstarter. She raised $1.2 million in 3 days, absolutely record-breaking for that time. And so she has gone. Incredible career, much more productive, much more profitable, much richer. She's made much more music. And she said, people come up to me all the time, and they say, Amanda, how do you get people to pay for music? She said, that's the wrong question. The right question is, how do you let people pay for music? How do you invite them into a creative space that allows them to be part of something that's bigger than they are? And I think if you look at the energy of Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you see these incredible collaborative opportunities that are economic in part, creative in part. We see people flowing in tremendous energy, tremendous economic resources. How do brands do this? I don't know. I don't have the answer. You guys will have to figure that out together. But it's tremendously exciting. Within that, mobile is eating the world. I thought the stat of 100 times a day that we're checking our phones, amazing. The other one that stuck with me over the last couple of days is that there are now more cell phones than clean bathrooms. And for me, that says something very fundamental. This is not about, can I play Candy Crush Saga? It is not, can I do a little frittery thing with my phone? It's much more fundamental and meaningful to people in ways that we don't quite understand. And again, this is a premise that we're playing with and exploring, but that massive amount of connectivity, that desire to touch information and be touched by it, it is not about utility. It is defining new edges of ourselves where we are interacting with information back and forth. It's forming a part of our identity. It is not about serving an information need that I have. It is defining ourselves more broadly in a connected social sphere. And none of us understand what the implications of this are yet. But it's a fun, frothy space that we all have the opportunity to play in. And finally, and I've said this a couple of different ways, I don't think that utility is where we're focused now. I don't think it's a key for marketers. Yes, take care of utility, it's table stakes. But I think that technologies can do things that none of us can imagine. And many of us want to do these things. We don't know what they are. We can't understand how they fit together. I was interested to see Tough Mudder. I'm a huge fan, although I'm too much of a chicken to actually do one. As an example for me of a place where people are pouring tremendous energy into doing something that they could not have imagined, right? People want to be challenged. What can I do with this incredible technology? I have no idea. Is Candy Crush Saga really the best I can do? I don't think so. I don't think so. And my closing thought, which is the place that I start with all my clients, all my agencies, the work that we all want to do that will cause our brands to grow 10x, that we're excited about and explode into, always starts on the other side of yes. So find your way into yes. There is no refuge. There is no safe place. I think best practices are dead. The world is changing too fast to digest that stuff out. So I encourage you to get in a space of yes, make stuff, put it out. It will be amazing. That's where amazing work can come from. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 questions.